Start a small business. No need to work 40, 50 hours a week, slaving your life away. Obtain financial freedom, be your own boss, and create your own destiny. Moguls are the new superstars. The path to country club membership and a leased Mercedes-Benz is paved in gold as you take your business trips to Orlando or Vegas. Validation from your in-laws is just an LLC and Facebook business page away. At least, that's what they tell you anyways. Through social media, websites, and targeted ads, you're sold an image. Small business owners seem to walk on water. You'd think you're the last person on earth working a regular job with a regular boss. But there's trouble in paradise, and its name is in over your head. People start looking to start their own business, don't know what they don't know. But that's why we started our Small Business Confidential podcast, to share what we've learned from years of experience. There's not a lot of people in on this, so remember, dear podcast listeners, you heard it here first, off the record, on the QT, and very hush-hush.
Hi, everybody. This is Mike Reilly with another episode of the Small Business Confidential. Our title today is Fail to Plan and Plan to Fail. And we were so excited to have Alex Hertzberg on that we had to have him back. So Alex is in his Tesla, which is, I assume, has great acoustics.
I've got this. One of my clients gave me this headset as a gift for Christmas, and I'm wearing it. The Tesla is the greatest driving technology on the road, but they have, as I was just mentioning, Mike, their Bluetooth is like the Commodore 64 of Bluetooth. It's no good. It's not, at least my Model S does not have good Bluetooth technology. So if this sounds good, that's great. I've got these Bose headset speakers that I'm talking through, so hopefully it sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me back, by the way.
Yeah, good. Well, Mike Ferrante should be joining us in a minute. He's been Zooming around the world, so he's going to join our Zoom conference. And this is the topic is something dear to my heart because it took me a long time to understand the whole concept of planning. And I've seen businesses crash and burn, people getting into starting their own business. They say they worked at a restaurant, or they worked on a construction crew, a painting crew, or they worked at a company, and they just said, yeah, you know what? I can do this. I can start my own business. And, this is what the podcast is about, starting and running your business and telling you all the little dirty secrets about what's involved, the kind of stuff you don't get when you go to the MBA school. So that's what we're going to talk about. And our guy, Mike Ferrante, has just gotten into the house. Mike, how you doing?
Fantastic. Good to be here.
All right. Now, are you in a car or are you in your office?
I am in my mobile office, the Toyota Tacoma mobile office.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, Alex outranks you. He's in the Tesla Model S. So you're in the Toyota truck and I'm in my office. So, because I want the sound to be good. But thanks for joining us, Mike. And
Mike.
We were telling our audience that our topic today, since you did not get the memo, since I didn't send the memo, is about planning. Fail to plan, plan to fail. So I've learned the hard way that if you don't script out your day, and if you don't have your people script out their day, that's tied to the weekly plan, that's tied to the monthly plan, that's tied to the strategic plan, all you're doing is going up the down escalator. So, Alex, give me your general thoughts about how you plan, how you value planning, what you've learned, mistakes you've made.
Oh man, mistakes I made. How much time you got? I love the way you described it about the different levels of planning: strategic, weekly, monthly, etc. I really have, I guess I would say I've got two rules / recommendations. One is, as Stephen Covey said, start with the end in mind, figure out where you're trying to go, think long term first, and then reverse engineer your goals into your short term goals. Like, the EOS system we use at my companies, we visualize a 5 to 10 year plan and then reverse engineer it into 1 year, quarterly, monthly, and weekly goals.
Right.
So that's step one, is just the visualizing and then the reverse engineering. Step two is getting the details in. Who is doing what, when, and why? And if you know that, that's called, and we put that into something called a Gantt chart, which is really a kind of a construction and manufacturing term. But if I know as a leader who is doing what, when, and why, and the why part is how that rolls into the larger goals, well, that's a plan. People say, I don't even know what a plan looks like. What's a strategic plan? What is it supposed to look like? All you need to know is where you're trying to get, and then the who's doing what, when, and why are they doing it. That,
Right.
ladies and gentlemen, is a plan.
Okay. Well, your take, Mike.
Yeah, same thing. We've got the big overall plan, but I think the biggest advice that I give to realtors that I train is that too many of them start their day and say, okay, what am I going to do today? If you don't at least have a plan for tomorrow in place, you're really missing the boat. And that's not to say all the other higher level plans aren't important, because we do the same thing. We have a strategic plan, we have yearly goals. But I just think that people like realtors, and there are probably other categories of professionals who are in the same boat, people who are in sales who go out on a day-to-day basis. If they don't know what they're doing tomorrow and they wake up in the morning and say, what am I doing today? They're already behind the 8 ball. So that's my best advice. And, I plan my day that way. I always have things planned that are regular on the schedule, and I always know what my week looks like at the beginning of each week.
Exactly. Well, let me just reduce the sauce here, which is I am firmly convinced most people do not understand what planning is about. Because rule number one, I agree with you, Mike. You have to know the day before, the night before, what you're doing the next day. Absolutely. If you're not doing that, then you don't know how to plan your day. It's like going to the grocery store without a list, which means you have to do something that, again, most people don't want to do, which means sit down on your ass and actually think. In fact, why don't you just sit down for 15 minutes and do nothing and just get yourself in a mode of actual thinking? And because from the thinking, from giving yourself space to think without just kind of rushing through it, you'll start over time, every day, getting better and better and better about planning. Rule number two is you have to have some way of measuring how you're doing with the plan. What did you get done that you thought you were going to get done? Because you could have 10 things. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, then I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then you look at it at the end of the day and you say, I only got 2 things done. Well, guess what? That was a shitty plan. Okay. Very shitty plan, because you only got 2 things done. Okay. Let's start again. It's 6 o'clock. It's 5 o'clock. It's 7 o'clock. And you're sitting down. Okay. What am I realistically going to get done tomorrow? Okay. And then you measure that at 5 or 6 o'clock to see what you did. And then, of course, the weekend, you're actually supposed to say, this is what I thought I was going to get done this week. What did I actually get done? And then that is the basis of your new week's plan. So it's always, what's that expression? Wash, rinse, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat. This is an exercise you have to go to build your think and planning muscle.
Yeah,
Alex?
Mike, if I can interject, my business coach says he has a little different version of that. It's wake up, kick ass, and repeat.
That's too rah-rah. Come on, really? Come on. Yeah, that's coach talk. That's, I don't know.
Man,
Just,
I'm about to embroider that on my pillow, Mike. That's brilliant. I like it.
yeah, you got to think. And for most people, thinking does not translate into kick ass. Kick ass is like, I'm in motion, I'm working. You know, one of my favorite stories, guys, long time ago, I realized when I was promoting somebody from the crew to the foreman, it took me a long time to realize that they didn't even know how to plan their day. And you know how I knew that? Because they would make 5, 6 trips to the store. Literally 5, 6 times. Going to get this, going to get this, going to get. Finally, I got so fed up, I said, I am not paying you to go to the store. You go to the store, you're off the clock. Somebody else can deliver it for you. And then I realized these guys didn't know how to plan. Go ahead, Alex.
So a couple thoughts here. One is, I personally think that like the samurai ninja master of planning your week, your month, your quarter, whatever, is this guy named David Allen. He wrote Getting Things Done. It just a really good system of creating basically buckets or folders. But that concept of reverse engineering long-term goals into short-term goals, he explains it really well. That's number one. Number two is, like anything else, I think good planning should be a habit, right?
It's like brushing your teeth.
Yeah, exactly. It should. What's worked for me, just purely from my own experience, is doing it at the same time in the same block every single week. And for me, that's Monday mornings at 9 a.m. I can't start my week until I've done a 1-hour weekly planning session. And then lastly, I don't know if you guys, you know that dude Tony Robbins. About 60% of the things that come out of his mouth, I drink the Kool-Aid, and then the other 40% I just can't get into. But part of the 60% that I really like is this concept that he's got called state, story, strategy. You go in that order. Anytime you want to problem solve or plan anything, you start with your state of mind. You got to put yourself in a positive state of mind. If you're in a shitty mood, if you're hungover, if you're tired, exhausted, and then you do your weekly plan, that's what your weekly plan is going to look like. If you put yourself in a positive state of mind by, for example, listing 20 things that you're grateful for, or doing some exercise or a meditation or whatever puts you in a positive mood, start there. That's your state. Then you go to story, right? Imagine all the limiting beliefs that you might have. You got to get rid of those. You can't go into planning mode thinking that you can't or shouldn't be doing something that you know you could or should be doing. So there's a whole thing about getting rid of limiting beliefs that I think everybody should think about. And then you do the strategy, which is the planning. State, then story, then strategy, in that order.
Yeah, I would offer one pushback on, I could never do Monday morning at 9 a.m. planning for one simple reason. Monday is the busiest, high potential of major impacts happening.
Yeah.
And if you are not, I mean, we literally script Monday on Friday when we have our schedule board meeting for the following week. It is scripted out. Guys know what job they're going to be at. Everybody knows what they're doing on Monday. And I'll never forget, a long time ago, one of my favorite TV shows is CBS Sunday Morning. And one of the contributors was a guy by the name of Bill Flanagan. Bill Flanagan, you'll hear him on the Beatles channel on Sirius. Great guy. And he would wish for a low impact Monday. And for Sunday dinner, when my kids were still living at home, and my wife, we do family dinner on Sunday nights before watching CBS Sunday Morning, which my kids took with a spoonful of medicine, whatever. We would say a prayer wishing for a low impact Monday. So beware of Monday. That's that. And to me, My general sense is that you do your planning when you're not interrupted, when the phone's not ringing. So a Saturday morning, mid-morning, when you get that second cup of coffee, you're on your deck or you're in your living room, if the weather's bad, or you're on your deck and you just got a legal pad and you're just giving yourself time to think. One thing I want to riff on, and I'll jump over to you, Mike, is how many people know, you remember what it's like when you get into cleaning out your garage, or you're organizing your room, or, washing the car and open the doors and really getting into it. You get into the zone. When you start, my wife's like this, she'll start organizing one cabinet, and before you know it, every cabinet has been emptied. Every cabinet's empty. So she's in the zone. Maybe it's going to take her an hour. She thought it was just going to be 15 minutes. Hey, embrace it. Ride the wave. Get into the zone. So the zone you need to be in to plan is the think zone. No interruptions, music on, second cup of coffee, and you're good at this, Mike, right? Captivate yourself. Get the juices flowing. All right. So your thoughts, Mike? Hey, let's stop here. We got to pay some bills. 30 seconds, and we'll be back.
If you enjoy listening to our Small Business Confidential podcast, we're sure you'll enjoy our first podcast, The Cleveland Real Estate Investor. We give outside investors an inside look into the real estate market in Cleveland. Cleveland has been on the rise, and investors from all over see those cheap prices and salivate. Our job is to educate those investors and steer them in the right direction with several years of experience of how to do it right and many examples of how to do it wrong. Find the Cleveland Real Estate Investor podcast on any app you listen to your podcast today.
Well, there's two things, and I think you guys both touched on this, but the number one, we call it time blocking or batching of tasks. And that's what you were just talking about with cleaning out the cupboards. Try to organize your week, your day, so that you're batching your tasks, not doing a little bit of this in the morning and a little bit of this in the afternoon. Try to do it all at the same time so you get in that rhythm, that groove. And then the second thing that we do, and Mike, you opened with it, but having a plan and then not checking your scorecard to see how you did against that plan is a big mistake.
Bingo.
So one of the exercises we like
Yeah.
to do, so one of the exercises we like to do, and I do periodically, maybe not every week, but I do something called the list of things I do. And, there's other people who call it something different, but we make a plan and we say we're going to do A, B, and C. We say we're going to do the things that are income generating activities for your business, your company, whatever, but then actually take an inventory, write down the list of things you do for an entire week. And I think you'll be surprised at what you see. You're going to look at that list in retrospect and say, wait a minute, why am I doing this task? Isn't this why I have an admin? Isn't this why I have employees or whatever it is? It's pretty eye-opening when you look back at that list and realize some of the things you're doing that you shouldn't be doing. And secondly, some of the things you said you were going to do that you should be doing more of, but because you're doing these other nonsense tasks, you don't have time to do them.
Exactly. And that sense of, am I getting anything done? What did I accomplish this week? That when I was talking about wash, rinse, repeat, that is so important, because if you're coming from, say, a school and starting a business, or if you're coming from a company that you got laid off or you're fed up and you just want to have your own business, whatever the reason is, you have to be aware that you don't know how to do this because you've been in a passive mode for your working life or your school life. Somebody's always telling you what to do. You're going to study this. I'm going to test you on it. You have to pass the test to get the degree, or you have a boss who may be an idiot, but whatever, that boss is telling you what to do. It's based on his or her plan. So don't underestimate the fact that you don't know how to plan. The quickest way to improve yourself and measure how well you're learning how to plan is, are you getting those results? And what are those results? If you want to start a restaurant, what you want to be able to do is pay the bills, right? I mean, That's why you're doing it. You're not, look at, if you're independently wealthy and like, I always wanted to start a business. Well, your goal, your strategic plan, Alex, is to have fun with the business, with the restaurant. Making money is irrelevant to that. So challenging yourself to ask yourself, am I meeting the results that I thought I was going to get? And that's measuring the strategic plan every day, every week to the tactical plan. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, there's that saying, what gets measured gets managed. I think it was the founder of Intel, I forget his name, but it's so right. And here's the thing, there are those among us, and I'm one of these people. I will be the first one to admit that this is not my strong suit, but I've figured out some hacks around it. There are people who just, like looking at your credit card receipts or statements or your bank statements or anything that just forces you to click through to a bunch of places to see some numbers at the end of that. It's like your least favorite thing to do. It's just it's like looking for needles in haystacks, and just it feels like work. It feels like busy work. There's this idea of dials. Create the 4 or 5 dials that represent the most important goals you have, and set your target to 12 o'clock. It doesn't have to be a dial. It could also be a thermometer. It could be some other imagery, right? But if you're one of those people like I am, who just, the idea of having to chase down data and information just feels like a pain in the butt, create imagery, create visualizations, create graphs and charts, and then fully automate it. And find somebody who can fully automate it for you. And then now you've got a dashboard, and it makes life so much easier.
Well, in that dashboard, let's keep this real. And again, there's 2 real simple analogies. One is when you take a trip.
Yeah.
I mean, you're leaving your house and you're going to drive to Columbus. Well, from Cleveland to Columbus, that's about a 2.5 hour drive. Okay. If you're going to plan on 2 stops to have lunch, it's going to be, 3 hours or a little bit longer. But you already have a sense of what the goal is, and you have a plan. I'm going to take 271 South. I'm going to get here. I'm going to get there, and I'm going to be at my dad's place in Upper Arlington, in the Columbus area. So I already have a plan. Same thing goes with losing weight. Look, you have to count what you're eating. You have to write that down, and then you have to measure that with the calories against how you're actually working out. If you're not working out, if you're on your ass watching TV, okay, well, you better eat a lot less because you're not burning anything. So, and then of course you measure that on your dashboard. It's called the scale. Okay. I mean, did you actually lose weight? Did you actually get to Columbus in 3 hours? And so again, you talk about reverse engineering, Alex, which is a great phrase. Those are 2 reverse engineering. Look at, my goal is to lose X number of pounds. My goal is to leave Cleveland at 12 and get to Columbus with a break at 3 o'clock. That's my goal. Did I do it? Yes or no? And the challenge for everybody listening to this is, do you have the courage to look in the mirror and tell yourself, after looking at those basic metrics, is this working? Okay. Don't wake up at the end of the year. Don't wake up 6 months later. Don't hope and pray or wish that this is going to happen. This is about bringing to bear metrics, planning, thinking, and adjusting as you need to adjust to hit those targets. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think about that a lot, because the best created plan, if it's not able to be adjusted, it's not a very good plan. I'm kind of curious what you guys do when you see a plan and it needs to be adjusted. Do you have a set timing for that? Or, how do you do that when you have a plan and you realize, hey, this isn't going the way it's supposed to, let me adjust? Do you guys have systems for that?
You go first, Alex, because I'll need five minutes on that one. Go ahead.
We use a tool at my company. It's called an impact filter. Okay, and the purpose of it's a series of 5 to 7 questions that are intended to filter out the real kernel, the real essence of what you're trying to accomplish and whether you're on track or off track from it. Here's what the questions are. Number one, what are you or were you trying to accomplish? Number two, how important is it? Why were you trying to accomplish it? What was your motivation? That's the whole start with why concept. Usually I find that when I fail to follow through on something, or I fail, or I just get distracted, it's because I didn't know my why, and I didn't want it bad enough, right? And so crystallizing the what into the why gets me there, and I put all this in writing. Then the third question is, what's your ideal result? What does it actually look like, right? Go from visual, just like kind of like a macro level vision, to actual specific boots on the ground micro, right? What is the ideal result? Then what are your performance metrics supposed to be? The next question is, what are your obstacles getting in the way of hitting that ideal result and those performance metrics? And then lastly, what are the strategies going to be to break through those obstacles? By the time you get to the obstacles, you will know, A, how important is this to you? And B, how insurmountable or surmountable are those obstacles? What are the opportunity costs? What are the financial costs? Is this something that you need to look at a longer time horizon than you were looking at before? But those 5 questions, and if you Google impact filter and Dan Sullivan, it's his, I blatantly ripped this off of somebody else.
Well, we're all ripping off stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, left and right.
But,
that's called evolution. Yeah.
I call that creative stealing. That impact filter usually gets me, and I do these things like 2 or 3 times a week now, right? For every major project, just to see if I'm on track or off track, or if I need to change things around.
Yeah, but Alex, let me jump in here, because one of the important things running through that, these are great concepts, is you have to be honest with yourself. Okay. Because let's say you're coming from a business where you kept blaming your boss, blaming the company. Oh, they don't know what they're doing. You go to the bar, have a few drinks with your coworkers, and all you're doing is pissing and moaning. Okay. Now you're out on your own. Okay. Guess what? There isn't a boss to blame anymore. And now, do you have what it takes to surmount that first big obstacle, which is to be honest with yourself? Because if you were honest with yourself, say 6 months ago when you're working at the company, you would have said, well, how many weeks am I going to keep complaining and bitching about this and doing something? It's one thing to complain. It's another thing to doing something about it. So at the core of every executable plan is the ability to do the course correction without making excuses, without shifting blame. You have to say to yourself, did I make money this week? And look at it critically. And that's where the reverse engineering came. Was I wasting my time? Was I working for a customer who was just draining me? Was I hiring somebody that I should have fired on day one? Is this really taking me longer than I initially thought it was going to take? But those are why you have to create time to think. Thinking is about building self-awareness as much as it is coming up with ideas. And you have to be solutions oriented, not excuse or blame oriented. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I love it. One of the things that I've taken from this today and in the past was the realization that, doing things alone isn't always the best answer either. So Mike, in your examples today, you've a couple of times said, hey, I had a boss and, didn't like the direction of the boss. But I think that even when you set off on your own, it's so important to have a coach, have a mentor. And, sometimes thinking that we have to do things on our own isn't necessarily true. And that accountability, not everybody has that built-in accountability. I personally don't have a huge issue with accountability or being honest with myself. but not everybody is wired that way. Having that person to report to, paying money to a person who you have to face on a weekly or twice a month basis and say, I didn't get this done. That's a big difference maker for a lot of people. So I think the value of coaching and mentorship can't be understated either.
Well, a lot of times people who start their own businesses, they may be financed by their family. They're underwriting it. They're not like an immigrant who's coming into this country just raw ambition and figuring it out. I mean, some of these businesses that get started, they're not businesses, they're hobbies. And they're, and somebody's always underwriting the fantasy land. Alex, you're going to be the final word on this, and then we're going to have to close because we're running out of time. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, well, you guys went down a really good rabbit hole here, which is accountability. I'm curious if we could go around the room. What do you guys do when you're dealing with someone on your team who's just really defensive and deflective? They do a good job for you when they're on, but when they're off or they get called out or they make a mistake, it's everyone's fault but theirs. And they get like hostile about it. I know I've got, a couple of different ways that I've dealt with those situations, but I'd love to hear how you guys deal with it.
Okay. And now we're going to end on that cliffhanger, because next week, folks, we're going to get into executing that plan and how you manage people around you who may be getting in the way. Alex and Mike, thanks for your time. So on that note, we'll pick up part 2 on this. All right, guys.
Love it. Cliffhanger for next week.
Cliffhanger. Okay. Thanks for your time, everybody. Talk to you later.
Guys.
All right. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Small Business Confidential. To support, please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Also add our podcast to your favorite streaming services. Everything is appreciated, and we'll be back soon with another episode and upload schedule. The person voicing the intro's name is Travis Reilly. Thank you, Travis. And the music was done by our engineer, me, Amari.